So for decades on social media, there's been a lot of talk about budgets and how you can live on the cheapest possible amount. There's talk about how cheap you can make your life, how much you can survive on bare minimum. But today I wanted to flip the script a little bit and I wanted to talk about the upper limit. So what budget would actually give you a life where you didn't need to think about anything? You would live like a king. The point where you get to where you are not counting the pennies, you just don't think about money anymore. And you get to a point where really there's, if you had any more money, it wouldn't make any substantial difference to your life. Now, in order to make this a little bit sensible, I'm going to assume that you've come to Thailand already and that you've set up. I think a good setup cost for Thailand would be 5 million baht. It is just a figure that would sort you with a house, with a nice vehicle that you can run. And I'm going to be assuming you have no rent payments, no mortgage payments, and that you're kind of set up. A lot of people that retire here do come with that startup money. It's not a lot for them if you compare it to setting up in a place like the UK or America and you think about buying a house there. It's not a lot. It has got a little bit of fat in there as well. So it may be that your visa money is also included in that. Some in your account for your retirement account, 800,000, which you're keeping. And this budget may not work in Phuket because things are going to be twice as pricey down there. I'm really talking about anything on the outskirts of Bangkok or in rural Thailand or outside the central hub of a tourist destination. I think that's where this budget would be best located. And finally, we also need to define what it means to live like a king. And so there'll be varying definitions of this. Of course, if you're doing a vlog called The Upper Limit, well, there is no upper limit. I have friends here that are multimillionaires that they've reached, all limit, but maybe they want another yacht. Maybe they want a private jet. That really is not what this is about. There is no upper limit to how much you can spend, especially if you have an appetite for consumerism and you want to expand and you want to buy more businesses and whatnot. What I'm talking about here is really a practical budget where you don't worry or think about money, where you're comfortable. But really I'm talking within the confines of a normal person, not somebody that's expanding businesses, buying yachts and flying private jets, of course. And for many men, maybe coming to Thailand, living as a king is revolving around women, or it's revolving around like drinking and going to the club and champagne service and things like that. If that's your version of living like a king, that's great. For mine, where I am in life at the moment, it's more about healthy eating. It's more about like a quality of life, travel, enhancing your lived environment, so home improvement, and obviously spending time with kids and whatnot. This for me is in a way like living like a king. And so now we've got all that out of the way, let's talk about some of the ways the money is actually spent first of all. Now in terms of food, you can't really go wrong in Thailand. Every day you can pop out your house, grab a coffee for 50 baht, 60 baht, especially here in rural Thailand. I will mention that in rural Thailand, obviously you're dealing with a very different economy than the city. If you're earning dollars or you're bringing a pension over in pounds or whatnot, those pounds are then being put into a local rural economy where prices are somewhat capped because the locals cannot pay expensive prices. The cafes know that if they charge 90 baht for a coffee, the locals won't be able to afford it. And so those prices are kept quite low. Businesses run on tighter margins. Otherwise, food at the market is super cheap. Locally grown vegetables cost next to nothing. Basically, you can eat like a king at next to nothing. You don't need a big budget at all to eat very well if you're sensible. If you're shopping in supermarkets, it's going to cost you a lot more. Are you going to the 7-Eleven every day? There used to be a time years ago where I'd spend 1,000 baht a day in the 7-Eleven and think nothing of it. These days, there's not really much I can find that I can eat anymore in the 7-Eleven. Eventually, everything starts to seem like it's chemicals or it's additives or it's preservatives, and in the end I kind of just gave up on that as well. Now one caveat I'm going to put here is things like berries end up being a massive cost for me. It might be surprising to some people, but berries can be quite expensive here. So maybe you're getting like a box of strawberries, can be up to 200 to even 300 baht in some places. Blueberries are more reasonably priced than strawberries. That ends up being quite an expense. In fact, I've just spent 400 baht already on berries today, and maybe I will do that twice a week. So you're talking already about 4,000 baht a month just on berries in my case, which really is quite a big cost. That is the cost of somebody's rent of an apartment in some places. Of course, we wash them in baking soda and got to get them healthy. But I've also been a big proponent on this channel of Wagu beef. I can spend around 5,000 baht a month just on Wagu beef. I don't buy it per month. I buy it in one big bulk and then I spread it across the month. But I keep a freezer full of Wagu beef, Wagu steaks, one of my luxuries. This to me is a part of living like a king. It may not be to you, but I can only give you from my point of view in this vlog. As for eating out of restaurants, if you do it, don't even think about it. It is cheap. Now, depending on the level of restaurant that you want to eat out on, I'm assuming in the budget that I put together that you don't just want to go to a local hole in the wall all the time, that maybe once or twice a week you want to have something nice and you want to pay a bit of premium, maybe some nice seafood, and you maybe want to have some beers, have a couple of drinks and whatnot. That is going to be factored into here because that is a part of living like a king. I don't think that living like a king is going out 6 nights a week in the nightclub and getting hammered and wasted, because it's just not sustainable. Your body and your mind cannot take it. Trust me, I tried my best. For about 6 or 7 years in Thailand, I was perpetually inebriated, and it was not a quality of life and not something I'd say is living like a king. So I'm not factoring that kind of lifestyle into this budget. And now the other point I'm factoring in here is travel. So you may not want to stay in your location all the time, especially if, as this budget is assuming, you are not in a busy kind of tourist area. You may want to travel once a month, once every 2 months. I usually get away once every 1 or 2 months, and of course that travel involves petrol, it involves hotels, which are getting more and more expensive every year. I'm actually going to be pimping the ride so that I can go away and I can camp a lot more in the future, but those expenses do add up, and I'm factoring into this budget that you're free to get away where you want to go within Thailand at least once or twice a month, and perhaps you're also factoring in 1 to 2 international holidays every year. Perhaps you're visiting home and coming back again, or you're going to Japan, or you're going to one of the neighboring countries, which obviously costs a little bit more. Running your vehicle is another cost. The ongoing insurance for your vehicle is another cost. I spend approximately 5,000 baht a month on petrol for the car, but I do travel a lot with YouTube. I'm assuming that anybody that does spend near that amount will be able to go wherever they want in the car, travel wherever they want, do a lot of travel and not worry about the petrol bill. So in my previous solo vlog, as I explained, our electricity bill was 5,000 baht, and some people said, well, you know, my wife's bill is 500 baht a month, so how do you get to that? And I have to explain here that the neighbour's bill is 500 baht. They're running a TV and some fans. Here we're running a high-end pump that pumps through the water filtration, that is watering the garden and all the land. We're combining 2 houses with a total of 6 air cons, 4 of which are running quite frequently. We also have things like hot showers in that a lot of the neighbours don't have. You've got 3 hot showers, so you can have a hot shower. These pull obviously from the electricity. Then my room is like set up with all kinds of tech. So you've got computers, you've got stuff for business. Of course, we have multiple fridges for our business as well. So we're running 4 fridges with 1 chest freezer. We have a business operating out of here with a lot of stock. There is TVs, as I mentioned already, dishwasher, robot hoover. There's all of these things that of course make your bill much higher than a local would be. You know, internet we're paying 750, I think, something like that, 750 baht a month, which I've also factored into this budget. Now the other big one is maintenance. There's always a tree, there's always a fence that needs to be done, there's always some maintenance to the roof. In fact, I have to replace the roof on the kitchen here because we noticed when we were getting the solar done that the sun is basically burnt through the panels. We went cheap Charlie on the roof, and now we're going to have to get that redone. So there's all these kind of maintenance jobs that you have to consider as well, especially if you've got a bigger area to take care of, and I've factored that into the budget also. Now, of course, not everybody is going to have that, but I think that most people that are thinking about retiring in Thailand, especially in rural Thailand, would want to have a bigger area than just a condo. Or you could have a decent sized condo. There are some condos that are quite little boxy condos, and there are some really nice condos which you've got a bigger space, and I assume they would still require maintenance, just not quite as much maintenance as a piece of land like this. Now in my case, I do have animals as well, and I don't like to factor this into the budget because not everybody keeps animals, but I can tell you that they cost me already 5,000 baht a month. That's in dog food, pig food, chicken food, and even more so with vet bills and things like that. Now this is a big one, and I know some subscribers may argue a little bit with the fact that this is in, but this is home improvement. We have assumed that you've got yourself a house and a car, you've got your base. But what I found living in Thailand is you're always doing projects and you're always adding things. A chest freezer, a fridge. There's all of these things that kind of add up all over time, and I don't budget them as like the initial capital expense because you never thought of them in the beginning. Maybe you need to build another annex as well, another small building. And so I have factored an amount of this into the budget in that you could buy an appliance, you can buy stuff online, your online shopping, Lazada and Shopee and whatnot, and you wouldn't have to think about that. You can improve the day-to-day quality of life. Maybe you need a fence built, maybe you just need something for the house. Well, that's factored into this budget as well, and that you wouldn't have to think about that spend. Now on to another slightly controversial one, I guess, for some, but there's family support as well. And I guess there are some people that really don't understand the whole idea of like family support. While we are successful economically and we're able to generate more than enough income to live here, we work as a team, and part of being that team is to give a small amount of funds to her family to take care of the kids and for Damo to do whatever she wants to do with the funds. And so that amount is around 20,000 baht a month. Damo earns that money in many ways because she works in the business every day. She's packing. She's very active and a very active person. So it's not really me giving anything or paying anything. She earns the money and she gives it to her family. And I think you may find that if you were in a Thai-Western relationship with a business-minded woman, if you set it up right, things can be that there's very strong teamwork and you build funds together and you build prosperity together. So I have factored that into the budget. Some people might want to take that part of the budget, and if you're single and whatnot, allocate that to dating and whatever you think you would spend money on when it comes to relationship. Now, even though I've factored most things in, I also have something in here called daily spend. Now, daily spend, it's hard to explain like what it's for because I just don't know where it goes sometimes. It's like every day I'm hit with something that I have to spend money on, and so I allocate 1,000 baht a day for daily spend. Daily spend ends up just being miscellaneous things where the money goes. I'll give you an example. Sometimes it's for my son's lunch to go to school. Sometimes it's something I buy at the market, something we need for the house. Like anytime I go out of the house, it comes to 1,000 baht a day. Some other allocations are things like phones and subscriptions. I probably have an unusual amount of subscriptions because of YouTube. So there's music licensing and there's other like design tools that I use. So maybe that's a little bit higher for me, but that is also factored into the budget. And because this video is called The Upper Limit, and I'm not just discussing my own budget, which I've mentioned on the channel before, comes to around 100,000 baht a month. I'm not going to say that 100,000 is the upper limit, because I would say that my attitude is a little bit different to other people, what they're going to want here, and maybe some people are more consumerist than others. And so I've put the final amount for the upper limit, where any extra money you add doesn't make much difference to your lifestyle, at 150,000 baht per month. And now I want to make some very, very key and important distinctions here, because what I found is, as you spend more on things like home improvement, adding things like the solar that take your cost down, perhaps I'll add an electric vehicle as well, which charges from the solar, which would bring the petrol cost down. Those monthly costs can actually come down quite a lot. So maybe it starts at 150,000 when you first get here, and you can bring it down to kind of where I am, is 100,000. Now, I have talked with expats that live in Phuket, and they spend 300,000 baht per month. Some of them spend 200,000 baht per month. I've talked to other expats that live on 25,000 baht per month and 30,000 baht per month. So the range is very interesting. The other issue that we have to take into account here is, one can buy a quality of life living like a king, depending on how you define that. So you can actually, those that are not overly consumeristic and you're not obsessed with online shopping, and you get to a point where you've got everything that you need, and I can say that I'm slowly arriving at an inflection point in my life at the moment, which is why I wanted to talk about this and do the vlog, where, before packages were arriving on a daily basis because we were doing home improvement and whatnot, but now I'm ordering much less. Once a week maybe a package will come from Lazada and whatnot, and that's because I don't really need anything anymore. Anything that we wanted and we needed, we have already. And so My monthly budget is actually dropping now, which saves more money for saving, more money for investing, and preserving capital for your retirement and then future generations as well. So there is that important nuance that you can actually live a very good quality of life if you can bring your expectations and your needs to a reasonable level. You could still live like a king, but it's a king not as society defines it, as a king as maybe you define it. Now, there are always going to be expenses in life. Of course, you saw in the chart, there's also insurance. I also have a large range of supplements that I take, which can cost 6,000 baht every time, maybe every 4 months or something like that. Olive oil is a big one for me. I spend a lot of money on olive oil, believe it or not. The Governor olive oil or Sparta olive oil. Sparta in particular is very expensive. And so there are these other things that add to my personal budget. But what I see for my future as well is a lowering of the monthly costs as the home is finished and done. I'm going to be pimping my car, as I mentioned as well. So that's going to be additional costs that are coming in. But once that's done, it's going to save me money on hotels, traveling around Thailand. It's going to be a bit more fun and adventurous, I think, in some cases. I think it's about bringing those levels down, your expectations down to eventually you're living like a king maybe on 50,000 baht a month, and you don't need much. You know, if you're not drinking and you're not partying so much, I think the quality of life doesn't need to be defined by the amount that you spend, but especially if you're first setting up and you have kids and you want to do stuff with your life, you want to travel, you want to eat well, you want to eat the things that you like and do the things that you like, then it's important to have a realistic view on one's budget, not just $500 a month and you can survive and not live, but what would be a good level to have. Of course, like all budget videos, it depends on the individual, it depends on the circumstances in the location, but I thought it was just an interesting thought experiment and I hope you've enjoyed it. Please leave your opinions down below. I'm sure many expats, many would agree or agree. What would be your upper limit, and how would you define an upper limit? That's interesting reading for me, and take care, guys.